Welcome to Camp Confidential, Beyond the Bars. I'm Katrina McLaren, and with my co-host Cheryl Womack, author, entrepreneur and philanthropist, we tell it like it is. In Season 1, we take you inside the walls of a women's federal prison camp. From pre-sentencing to navigating daily life behind bars, we offer practical advice, survival strategies and insights that no one tells you before you go in. No sugarcoating, no cliches. This podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only. Be sure to do your own research and consult a professional. Today's episode, Ready or Not, is based off the book How to Go to Camp, Surviving in a Women's Federal Prison by Cheryl Womack, available now on Amazon. I can only imagine how hard it must be for an inmate knowing that your time is coming to an end in prison, but you're anxiously waiting for your release date. Cheryl, can you walk us through that process of how you found out that you were about to leave camp?
Well, I think the thing I want to tell you is that I was worried about going very much to where the halfway house was going to be, scared to death. So getting a release date was like good and bad news for me. And then I was learning while I was in there something about you have a certain amount of time. Once they gave me a release date, they give me this release date and it gets me out like October 3rd. And I'm thinking, yes, I actually wanted to see if I could get out a little earlier because my son Ryan's birthday was October 1st and Dean's birthday was October 15th. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to get right there and we can celebrate his birthday and I'll be back in the throw of things. And that made me excited, but it was an emotional roller coaster because when I sat down with him, he said, no, there's a certain amount of time you have to do with the BOP. And so if you go October 3rd to the halfway house, you have 30 plus days to be at the halfway house and you won't go home. You have to be there. And I'm like, no, why? I said, I should be able by my age and some of the new regulations they've just passed, some second act things that said that if you're over 60 years old and you had a good place to go stay at home, you shouldn't even have to go there. But I couldn't get anybody to think about that or look at that or take it seriously. Certainly nobody in the prison was going to take it seriously. And I kept talking to my husband about it and he kept saying, well, I don't know. I finally just screamed at him and scared him to death and said, you get over to that halfway house and figure out what's going on. And I don't want to be there. I'm being told it's a party city, that they do drugs, that it's way more men than women. I said, everything about that scares me. Here I am, a town driver, driving all over Illinois and Missouri in charge of prisoners, taking them everywhere with some amount of responsibility and some amount of control over my life. And suddenly I'm going to go into this halfway house for 30 days? No. So then I went to the warden and the case manager and I asked if I could, I asked if I could stay. I said, I'm willing to stay and be a town driver for 30 more days. And I would like to have my time adjusted to go to the halfway house. And go, well, you can just stay here till the end of your time, which will be like December something. I don't know where this date came from. They were mean and it horrified me. And I was in tears and very upset, and so I'm struggling with, I've got a routine. I know what's expected, what's not expected. I feel safe. I now have to figure out how to go to someplace I don't feel safe at all. I don't know anything about it. The only information you get about where you're going is the gossip in the place. I told you they had an orientation meeting, talking to the girls that were supposed to get out soon about halfway houses. And mostly they talked about that the halfway houses were shutting down and follow the rules. But what are the rules? You couldn't even get a clear picture of, did you or didn't you need a cell phone? And everybody kept saying, you cannot have a cell phone to go in there. You cannot have a cell phone. What I learned was if you didn't have a cell phone from my husband going in person, you couldn't get out for daily visits, to go shopping, for a weekend visit with your family. You couldn't do any of the things that might be available to you because you didn't have a cell phone. Again, I feel badly for somebody who can't even afford a cell phone when they first get out and they go into a halfway house because they're not going anywhere. But so you're asking everybody. The other part is, we talked a little bit about, I'm excited I'm going. I'm scared that I'm going. It's such an unknown for me that I know is going to be more dangerous than where I am. I don't know if it's going to be more bars. I don't know how much more intense it's going to be. And I'm supposed to also be very quiet because you don't want to offend other people who might be in there for 20 years and you don't want to be offensive to them talking to you about your time out. So you sort of want to be low key on this thing. So I had a assistant warden and a case manager playing games with me. And then they finally sent me a thing through the mail telling me that they would release me at the end of October to go. And we didn't know if I'd be 2 weeks or 1 week or 30 days or what when I went to the next place. It was an unknown to me at that point. And I just think the prison system does that on purpose. I just think they can give you dates and they can pin it down and they just don't. And I don't understand why they don't get more critical with that, because The available space for the next person has a lot to do with them staying on target with their dates. If they know exactly when somebody's getting out, they can tell you exactly when somebody's coming in. I don't understand how that's a moving target, but it seems to be. So that's a very frustrating part about it.
In the lead up to you getting your release date as such, I know you've sort of alluded in the past that you were talking to a bunkie about what you thought might be your date. And that triggered a whole series of events that really raised a real concern that you may not get out. Let's talk a little bit around that and what happened.
Well, that was, I was sitting talking to the girl who was in my room with me, and I was sitting calculating when I thought I'd be out based on keeping all my good time. And I thought it'd be early October. And I said, "Oh my gosh, I think I'm going to be out." I'm getting excited about it. And I've got the girl on the other side of the stone wall eavesdropping, and she's waiting to get out quickly, way before me. We're talking probably this is June, and she's out in July. And she went to the case manager and just had a hissy fit and said, "Why does Miss Womack have her out date and I don't have mine and I'm supposed to be out in July? Why didn't tell anybody I had my out date?" I went up to the case manager and I'd never met him. And I said, "You probably don't even know who I am." And he goes, "Oh, I know who you are. And you're a troublemaker." I was horrified. I thought, here's the man in charge of me getting out of prison. I am never getting out of here. I'm not going to get out of here. This guy hates me and he's never even talked to me. And he's mean to everybody. He'd take pieces of paper and talk to somebody and throw it on the floor and tell them take it or leave it. And I mean, I was just thought, oh, don't be throwing my paper on the floor, because that probably will be when I'll go to the shoe. I'm not okay with that. But he was a very disrespectful case manager. And frankly, I just don't know how he kept his job. He was not liked by anybody, but he had huge power and control and the ability to extend your date, not extend your date. And then when this new assistant warden came in, he was just as arrogant and casual about important things. I mean, these are life changing things that are happening to you in your life. And they're just so casual about it. Like it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter. And so I would literally call my husband that Sunday night, bawling my eyes out, going, "I'm never getting out of here. I'm probably going to be stuck in prison forever."
Clarify, did you get into trouble for having discussed a potential date?
I just got yelled at and said, "I don't want to talk to you. I'm not going to talk to you." So, I mean, I just thought, okay, well, the guy who's supposed to give me my out date is never talking to me again. Here I go.
Okay, so that's really daunting and very, very scary.
It was horrifying.
So around this time, you're thinking about the possibility of, as a part of your parole period, you had to go to a halfway house for a certain amount of time. Luckily for you, you were able to do some of that still in prison. And your biggest concern was safety about the halfway house?
Absolutely. I'm going now to a halfway house that's got every type of criminal, every type of felon, whether they're on drugs, murderers, rapists. And again, out of 185 possible capacity, only 17 to 19 of those spots were women and all the others were men. And there's not a locked door in the facility. So, I mean, you're just going in and shutting your dorm door for the little room that you girls are in. And I think most of the girls that do, I mean, listening to some of the girls that told me go in there and it's party city, they're like, "I had a lot of fun in there." And the girls, getting together with guys because now they're around men. And I'm just like, I don't want any part of this. This is totally uncomfortable to me. I'm not happy with this at all.
When you were talking about that case manager and you got yelled at for discussing a potential date, did it really jam home to you then that you don't discuss an out date in prison, and why?
Oh, absolutely. I knew then. That's when I figured out the most that the walls have ears and eyes, and anything you say in there can and will be used against you. Even if you said it casually and you weren't even sure what you were talking about. Because I mean, a lot of times you talk something out trying to figure out what do you think about it with somebody else. And you just don't realize how well everybody can hear what you're saying and how much everybody's going to pick it up and take it and run with it.
And how much jealousy, obviously, it can create by, as you're saying, there's people in there for a long period of time. And whilst on one hand, I think they could be excited for and happy for their friends to be getting out, there's got to be that level of jealousy as well.
Well, and this girl was getting out before me that was all upset about it. It's like, even if I had an out date, my out date was going to be in October. Her out date she was still waiting for was in July. So this is this is May or June. I mean, I do understand. You get very emotional about it. And she kept thinking they were going to give her a date. They weren't going to they were going to give her a date. And they just take forever to give you your dates. There's no rush on their part. And, I just don't think they realize what an important piece that is for the I mean, it's a management of your life. It's a piece that you're here and how do I get out and what's that transition to? And if it's far away, am I taking a bus? Can somebody pick me up? There's a lot of parts to getting out than just I have a date and I'm getting out.
I would have thought getting a date, though, would also be a really good incentive for a prisoner to stay on track, to keep control of their behaviour and that lead up to that date, because they could still jeopardise that. So I would have thought it would be a really good incentive for people to know that they had a light at the end of the tunnel as such. But in saying that, how did you find out your date?
When I was figuring out I was almost due out, then they pulled me in and they said, you can get out about October 3rd. And so I started having conversations with them about how long will I be there? And they could almost not be bothered, but they said, well, you have a certain amount of time you have to be at the BOP, and it's at least till October 29th, 30th, something like that. So you're not getting out before then. And I was like, for me, then all I had was, just shock going off in my head going, well, I'm not going there then yet. I'm safe here. I like what I'm doing here. I'll just stay here longer. And just by the fact that I took the initiative to say, I'll stay here, and came back to them with that proposal, just irritated the crap out of them. And they really just wanted, really the warden just basically said, we'll get back to you. We'll let you know if you can do that or not. And I just had to sit around and wait for probably a week for him to come back to me in writing or through an email on the system and tell me, okay, you're getting out on October 30th.
So just to clarify, you've got to do that time through the BOP. So does that matter whether it's in the prison or the halfway house? So the halfway house is owned and operated by the BOP?
It is still part of it, which is why I think more than not you go to a BOP, because they're still earning income as the Bureau of Prisons to give you time in there, even though they've got new legislation that should allow you to bypass it for older people or people with disabilities and things like that. It just doesn't happen. And I think it doesn't happen again because even if you get in there for a few days, they can get a month's income out of you.
So, in a podcast with Dean, he alluded that he thought it was just about money to get you into that halfway house. And from what you're saying, it sounds like that could be correct. Because in some ways,
it's totally about money. It's totally about money. It is. There's no reason to put you in a halfway house for so many reasons. There's a lot of things you see out on podcasts and things now where they're honestly talking about there's no reason for a halfway house. They ought to be putting people in home confinement unless they don't have somewhere to live. Again, one of the girls, who was a friend in Iowa, got put in a halfway house that was all the way across the state of Iowa from her home. Could she have gone to her home and maybe gotten a job closer to her home and stuff? I don't know. But because they had to put her in a halfway house, she had to find a place to live in a foreign place. She didn't have any family support. You jump through a lot more hoops because you have to go somewhere that has a halfway house. So it dictates where you're going to end up for a period of time. And for some people who, like in RDAP, have worked their way off to get maybe 6 months off their time, then that's 6 months that they're going to do at a halfway house that, again, could be halfway across the state from your home.
And we're talking about people going maybe released straight to home. I think it would depend on the level of your conviction. So if you've committed murder or a really serious, heinous crime, I would understand that perhaps there needs to be still some level of control in a halfway house, but maybe not for what we're discussing, certainly for your age and for what your crime was. Do you think that constantly talking about that, you knew the end was coming, do you think it took an emotional toll on you and it was hard going on you?
Well, I think what was hard for me is that the mental games they play with you of when can you get out? And again, I take the initiative to make my own plan, have my husband go to the halfway house and offer them what I think is a good solution because they don't have another town driver. So they'd be down to one town driver instead of two. And they pretty much, mock me and laugh at me and just say, you don't get to decide that. We'll get back to you. So it was very unsettling to go through that entire process. From the very beginning, I thought, oh my God, how am I going to get out of here? And nothing about being prepared to go into a halfway house made me feel one bit better about getting out.
By the time you were ready to leave the camp, do you feel you were just ready to re-enter society? You felt the halfway house had no actual benefit to you because they're supposed to reintegrate you into society and perhaps get a job. And of course, for you, that was not applicable.
Correct. I wasn't getting a job. If you had a home that even before you go to the halfway house, the parole officer and the halfway house goes to your home to see if it's suitable for you to go to for visits and when you do get out. So you wait for that approval. So by the time you go to a halfway house, those approvals have taken place. So they know where you live. They know that it's going to be okay. And again, there was just no reason for it. My biggest frustration through everything there was how upset I was that I was doing 30 more days. I was missing my son and my husband's birthday yet again. And I was just mentally trying to recover from, gosh, I thought I was getting out here and now it's a month. But I have to stay here because that would be worse in my mind.
So when you have the date and you're getting ready to go to the actual halfway house, does the case manager or does someone sit you down and explain, right, this is what happens in a halfway house. These are the rules. This is what you're going to expect. I mean, did you have any say in the location of the halfway house, anything like that?
You have nothing to say about where you go. You have nothing to say about it, and you get no information. I mean, enough so that I brought the things that I had in camp to take with me into the halfway house. And some of the things that I brought in there, because I brought them all in the big trash bag. And so they literally go through everything you bring in when you get there. And a number of things I brought in the trash bag from camp were not allowed in the halfway house. So, they just said, you need to get rid of these things. Your husband can take them away, or we're going to throw them away because you can't have them in here.
So one of the other things too that might be important is when you're actually leaving prison, is it important to have all your paperwork in order and maybe certificates or things like that?
Well, I think at this point, it's critical that all along, hopefully, you've kept this one legal envelope that we've asked you to keep that has your PSR in it from your original sentencing, that might have any other certificates, your GED, anything else you've gotten, because any of that to present to your parole officer and the halfway house will bode well for what kinds of jobs they might talk to you about, where they'll let you go, what they'll let you do. I mean, it's even a bigger deal today than it was when I was in there, that if you're programming, they call it, and you're doing things, you can earn phone time and you can earn other things that I can't elaborate because I've not studied up on what's current, but it improves the things that can happen for you. So it's really important that you keep them, because if you wait for the parole officer you're eventually going to get, not even right away in the halfway house, but you eventually meet your parole officer within a week or so of going into the halfway house. And when they come in there, if you don't have those certificates, they have to write to the BOP for that information. The BOP doesn't care when they send your information. It could be never, it could be a year, it could be 2 months. So you need to be responsible, as you were responsible for getting good information in to go to the camp. You need to be responsible for bringing out good information into the next part of your process, because you're not done.
Cheryl, I read in the book, How to Go to Camp, you talk about also it's important for people that are about to get out of camp to look if they've got any other charges out there in the wind and try and have them consolidated before they leave. Do you want to explain the importance of that?
You do not know how many times I would see a girl come busting through the alley in tears and just so upset. Nobody could console her, only to find out that instead of being picked up by her family, then a marshal was going to pick her up because she had a state crime, or she had a city crime or a local crime that had been filed at the same time as her federal crime. And instead of working with her attorney and making sure that attorney went to each person and said, let's get them all served as the same time served so your slate is clean. You haven't now. And now you've got to go wait. You've got to go sit in that local jail, and you got to wait to get in front of the judge and see if he calls it time served when you get up in front of him. So you're not going home. I mean, I literally watched a girl lose a job that she had lined up through the halfway house because a marshal was picking her up, and she had to go somewhere. She had to go to a different jail to wait for her time to get out.
And did she just find that on the day of her release day?
She might have found out within a couple days, but I mean, I just think for a lot of people, it's not something they think about. And I wouldn't have thought about it if I hadn't seen not once, but many times girls coming in there finding out you've got outstanding warrants for you, and you should have had those settled by your attorney before you ever got out, because now they're going to come and find you.
When you're preparing to go to the halfway house, you were able to have your husband pick you up. Is that correct? You didn't have to rely upon a town driver or anything like that, or you were allowed to do that?
If you know you've got somebody that you think is reliable, you basically get them approved. When you know you're getting picked up, they'll ask you, do you have someone who can pick you up to be approved? And you give them all the information on them. And then you have to tell them what make and car exactly. Like my husband got a new truck, and he couldn't pick me up in the new truck because we'd given him information on my car, because he was going to pick me up in my car instead. And so he had to come get me in my car instead of in his new truck, because we didn't have the paperwork filled out for it. So they come out and they match you up and make sure that you are exactly getting out into the vehicle with the person that you've explained is picking you up. It's a process, and you do it by the book.
So when you're getting sort of discharged from prison as such, what do they give you? They give you back your belongings from the very beginning? Are you presented with any type of card or refund from commissary? What happens there?
So the first thing you have to do is you have pieces of paper for each department that you were involved with while you were in camp. And you've got to go see the CEO of each one of those areas and have them sign off that you're in good standing and there's nothing outstanding for you to deal with them. And the last one you go to is medical, which is the scariest, because that could be medical hold. And everybody's relieved when they get their signature for medical. It's the last one. Then the person that you're authorized to pick up or meet the town driver will go with you to take you to a bus stop and drive you over to the FCI, and there we go and we pick up a debit card that any money you've had left on it, whether it's $25, $200. Some people, if they've been in there 10 years and they've had a job, might have had some money accumulated over time, and it all comes out on a debit card under JP Morgan, and you take that card. Now, if the card machine is down or if the computer's down and they can't do it, put it on the debit card. Sometimes I've seen them, if it wasn't very much, count you out cash, and give you cash to take. But mostly they put it on a JP Morgan card for you to take with you as you left.
Did you take all your belongings with you when you left prison, or did you leave some of those behind?
I went through the process of, I knew I wouldn't keep all my extra sweats, and I wouldn't be, I wouldn't keep my tennis shoes. I didn't need those tennis shoes. And so a lot of things I donated to big sisters or to friends. Here's some shorts, here's some t-shirts for people who need things that you didn't know anybody needed. You give back, you turn in all your greens and your underwear and everything, your winter coats. You have to check all those into laundry before you go. That's one of the places you check off to, and so you go through that process of getting everything. You now think you've got everything that's just left in your compartment that you're going to load and take with you: your plastic cups, your bowls, your makeup, your medicine, all the different things that you've used over time while you've lived there. Then you might find out when you get there, you can't have all those things. It's just a different set of rules for what you can have.
So there was pretty much your sort of packing up what was your room. I'm assuming you're taking your bedroll back. You
Right.
you just did the prison greens. So
Right.
what did you actually walk out of there with? Was it just a rubbish bag full of what?
I think I brought one sweat, one pair of t-shirts. I wore my work boots because I liked my work boots. And I had my husband bring me, because you can bring an outfit. Actually, you can have him send an outfit into you a week before. And then that morning, the A&O guy, who also does the mail, who's a complete crapper, but he gives you your clothes that you can change into a couple hours before you can check out. And you get actually, and then you have to stay up there by the bubble. I had him bring me a pair of blue jeans and a sweater. And I said, I'll just wear my boots and socks. So now you're packing everything up. You're carting this big trash bag up there. And then when you get there, go through every single thing that you've got. So they go through and say, can you have this? Is this legal? Isn't this legal? Everything you've got, including your paperwork. And then when they've decided everything's fine, then you sit on the bench and you wait until, even if your person's sitting outside in the car, you sit there until they release you. And you might sit there an hour. It just depends upon the kind of mood they're in that day.
Did you find that you learned patience while you were in prison?
I was supposed to. You stand in a lot of lines all the time. And I think I started learning patience on the way through this whole process because nothing was going fast. But yeah, you're certainly going to learn to be more patient because you're not in control of your life. You're just not. And you have to come to terms with that. And you find your own ways to tell yourself you're working within your own system of what makes you feel okay, but you're within their parameters. And that's all there is to it.
Did you find that you had mixed emotions the day that you left? Because on one hand, you knew your husband was waiting for you outside to drive you to the halfway house, yet on the other, you were leaving behind some genuine friendships that you'd made. How
Well,
did they feel about that?
my husband was in the military, and you always hear military men who did serve time over in a location, especially life-threatening time or just a long time. Maybe they were in Germany, but they were there for a year or two. How bonded they become ever after in their life. And I sort of could see it, but I didn't really get it. You're in a dangerous situation where you don't feel safe, and it's a long time, and you bond with these people. And a lot of them, I worried about and took care of, and some of them took care of me, and they became like family. And I bawled my eyes out on my way out to the car. I just cried and cried and cried. It won't surprise anybody, but I bawled my eyes out, sad, worrying about the girls I'm leaving behind because I know somebody else isn't going to look out for them the way I was. I know there won't be entrepreneurism classes right away. I know the GED classes won't be the same. I know they won't be as helpful on the town driver rides. You feel like you're abandoning your friends, and you're not going to talk to them because you're on paper for 12 months. And so there's no communication with anybody who's on paper or in prison. So it's not like you can get on the email system and say, how are you doing? You can't. So you're just cut off and it stops right there. And that was very hard. And then worse, my husband puts me in the car, and the first thing he does, because he does all these phone calls afterwards, is he gets on the phone for FaceTime and is getting ready on Facebook to post, I've got Cheryl out, and he's going, Cheryl, say hi. Well, I'm blubbering and I don't want to see them the minute I'm coming out. I'm mortified.
That was something at that point in time you were still maybe a little bit shell-shocked and didn't want to necessarily celebrate in that way.
No, we were excited I was getting out, but you still knew there was a lot of adjusting to do. You still knew you weren't getting out. You're just getting, plus you have like, depending upon where you're going, they give you a certain amount of time to get there, or you're in trouble again to go to the halfway house. So it's not even like you can go for a nice lunch. We went through, McDonald's or KFC or something and had lunch and talked together because it took, I think we had 8 hours or something like that. And so, I got to go through and, buy some supplies for cosmetics and stuff on the way there. And then I think some of those weren't appropriate and I couldn't keep them. But there's still a lot on your mind. What's the place going to be like? Remember, I didn't feel safe about it. Other girls, if they're going in, they're getting into a bus stop and they've got a marshal or somebody coming to pick them up, or another town driver. It's a bigger camp taking them to the next place. It's an unsettling situation. You're out, but you're not out.
Thank you for listening to How to Go to Camp with Katrina McLaren and Cheryl Womack. For more support, check out the Women of Worth website, www.womenofworthwow.org, where you'll find helpful resources, including Cheryl's books, Mummy Loves You Everywhere and How to Go to Camp, Surviving in a Women's Federal Prison. Whether you're preparing for the journey or supporting someone through it, remember, there's guidance, hope and a community ready to help you navigate this path.